In today's video, I am going to teach you how to master Excel pivot tables, slicers, and dashboards. We are going to build a pivot table, add slicers for easy filtering, and then put everything together on a clean dashboard sheet. As you follow along, pause the video whenever you need a moment to catch up with what you are seeing in Excel. First, click inside the data range, a 1 to D5. In most spreadsheets, this means your cursor should be inside the table area that contains the raw data you want to analyze. Next, go to the Insert tab on the top ribbon menu. Look for the Pivot Table option and click it. Excel will then ask where to place the pivot table. Click OK to confirm the default placement or adjust if your sheet layout requires it. This step matters because it tells Excel to summarize your dataset in a structured pivot table view. Now that the pivot table has been created, you will see a pivot field pane, usually on the right side of the screen. Take a moment to check everything in this pivot field pane. That means you should select all the available fields so they appear in the pivot table and you can see how the data is being organized. If you want to confirm you have selected everything, make sure each field checkbox is turned on. This ensures the pivot table has the full context it needs before we add slicers and a chart. After the fields are selected, we will move to the ribbon menu designed for pivot table tools. Click the Pivot Table Analyze tab at the top. This tab appears when you are working inside the pivot table, so make sure you have clicked the pivot table area itself if you do not see it. The Analyze tab is where you will find controls that help format, build, and extend your pivot table. It is the next step we need before adding interactive filtering. For the Pivot Table Analyze tab active, click Insert Slicer. Excel will open a dialog box that lists the fields you can use as slicers. For this dashboard, check the box for Product. Then click OK. After that, a slicer box will appear on the worksheet. This slicer is important because it gives you a simple way to filter the pivot table by product without manually changing rows or formulas. Next, we will create a visual to go along with the pivot data. Click Insert Chart in the Tools group. When you do this, Excel will prompt you to create a chart based on the pivot table results. Choose the chart type that fits your data view and confirm the chart placement. The goal is to have a clear graphic that updates as your slicer selection changes. This is what turns raw analysis into something that is easy to present and understand. Now that you have both a slicer and a chart, we will prepare the final layout. Cut and paste your slicer and chart onto a clean worksheet named Dashboard. To do this, open or create the Worksheet tab labeled Dashboard, then cut each element and paste it into that sheet. Make sure the slicer and the chart are placed neatly so the page looks organized and professional. This step matters because dashboards are all about clarity and layout, and a clean sheet helps viewers focus on the key information. When you are pasting, take a moment to check that the slicer still connects to the pivot table. Also confirm that the chart is showing the pivot results you want. If anything looks misaligned, you can click and drag to adjust the size and position, but do not change the underlying connections. The slicer should remain the control, while the pivot-based chart provides the visual summary. Once everything is on the dashboard sheet and the layout looks tidy, you are finished. And that covers everything you need to know. That is all there is to it.